Remember Marie Kondo? She was that whole spark joy lady. I know it's a dated reference, but when I think about what to say about Pikmin 4, that's what comes to mind. Ultimately, it's a semi-mindless game where you run around throwing Pikmin at objects, watch them drag these giant fruits or Game Boys back to your spaceship, fight monsters, and that's it, really. But man, is it so satisfying. Let's talk about why. You know what else is so satisfying? Liking the video, subscribing to the channel. Up until a year or two ago, my familiarity with Pikmin started and ended with Olimar being in Smash. I kinda knew the basic concepts of the games, but I'd never picked them up back on the GameCube, and didn't own a Wii U. When the series finally came to the Switch, I eventually cracked and bought the third game. These games are essentially a Nintendo-ified version of the RTS genre. You run around the map with your little army of plant men. Each color has its own strengths and weaknesses. You fight monsters, you collect treasures, you solve some puzzles. The thing I really liked about the game is that while the monsters that you're fighting do seem kind of alien, the world you're exploring doesn't. The characters in the game always seem to find themselves stranded on Earth, or at least an Earth-like planet. And it's always a lot of fun to see what we consider basic things like cocktail swords or poker chips or Game Boy Advance games being considered treasures by these interstellar explorers. The series has an undeniable charm that is always present. The theme of this game is Dandori, the concept of organizing your tasks strategically and working effectively. Characters constantly bring up Dandori, and there's even specific Dandori challenges throughout the game for you to compete. It is satisfying to rove around the map with your army of Pikmin and send them off to tackle a number of obstacles at once. Now, while I've only played Pikmin 3 and now 4, I think I can confidently say that Pikmin 4 is the most expansive game in the series, with huge open areas to explore, as well as a large number of tunnels for you to go through. I thought the tunnels were pretty cool. Each brings its own unique setting or environmental hazard that keeps them feeling fresh, even though they are pretty repetitive. I did feel that this section of the game was a little too guided. When you go into a tunnel, the game essentially tells you which types of Pikmin would be best to bring, or if you need specific Pikmin, they will make sure to provide them for you in the areas of the tunnel where they're necessary. It would have been nice to have to kind of return to the surface, get the correct Pikmin, and go back in once you'd explored a little bit, but I can see why they set it up this way. And honestly, the variety and the uniqueness of the tunnels is enough that that's really not the hugest bother. I do feel like this highlights a problem that Nintendo specifically always has with their games. This idea that the games have to be playable by both a 5-year-old and really experienced gamers. It's a hard balance to strike. Too challenging and the kids won't like it, too easy and the more experienced players won't like it. In general, I would say this game errs on the side of the 5-year-olds, with most of the exploration and encounters in the game feeling extremely easy. The game also includes a rewind feature, which lets you undo some of the more challenging or punishing encounters, and there are admittedly a few of them to be found throughout the game. For example, there's this one rock guy that flopped over and wiped out all of my Pikmin, this roly-poly guy who crushed all of my Pikmin, and this other monster that stuck out his tongue and ate all my Pikmin. Personally, I love the tonal clash that the Pikmin series offers. So much of it is this lighthearted, cheery, colorful, bright, cute little Pikmin. But then you find a monster, and your Pikmin get impaled, crushed, burned, drowned, eaten, all the while letting out these little pained squeaks of death at the end. I think it kind of works in a darkly humorous way. While the main game is a little too easy, I do think the game does still have some challenge on offer with its later game content. If you want to get through the main game, you're really not going to get challenged. It'll happen a handful of times when you encounter maybe a new boss enemy that has a special attack or something that you're not ready for. But on the whole, it's going to be a fairly straightforward experience. The later game Dandori challenges, there's one tunnel at the end of the game that is just 10 really challenging challenges. Those can be a little ridiculous as far as the top level completion requirements go. Now, you don't need to get the highest rank in these challenges to 100% the game, but if you want to get the top tier of all challenges, then you're going to have to do it, and it is a challenge to do. I kind of like this. I'm personally not naturally good at these types of games. I like the idea of tackling challenges, but optimization, especially in games, is never really something that I am excited by, so it's not really something I am drawn to. And then in this game specifically, I feel like there were some quality of life elements that it was just lacking as far as micromanaging your Pikmin go. Once you send your Pikmin out, they'll do whatever you send them to do, and then you stand there. You can, as you play through the main game, unlock this ability to call them back to you, but you call them to wherever you're standing. So if you move from that position, they're not going to be with you, so you have to ultimately still wait for them. Then at that point, you now have all your Pikmin back with you, so you still have to go to the next thing that you want to collect or do and throw the Pikmin there. It just felt like it would have been nice to have a little more control over where those Pikmin go after they finish their current task, rather than the only option being back to you. In general, I don't mind that as far as the game design goes, but when it comes to these later game challenges where it really felt like they require a good amount of parallel operations, this bottleneck kind of killed the joy for me as far as, again, going for those top level results, getting the highest rank on these challenges. I still 100%ed the game, but I was good at that point. I think if you really are a diehard for like strategy in these types of games, though, there is some really good challenge to be had here if you want to go for the highest rating in those challenges. Also new to the Pikmin series this game is the night expeditions, where you go out at night. These are a little different from the main game, as it's more a tower defense kind of section. You initially start by making and collecting resources, in this case Pikmin, and then defend your base against a couple waves of enemies. A really cool idea, hindered by its execution. I just thought most of these were too easy. It felt trivial to collect enough Pikmin before the monsters started showing up that once they did show up, I just steamrolled them. The last mission or two was a little tougher. The last one especially took me a couple of tries of trial and error, get everybody where I needed to be to kind of catch the bigger monsters before they got to my base. And really, I wish all of the levels had that kind of challenge to them. They could have maybe reduced the number of Pikmin that you were able to collect, or had a more pressing or larger enemy presence in them, just something to make them a little more tense. The final big addition in this game is Ochi the dog, and he is the best. It is so awesome having all your Pikmin ride on him. Consolidating 100 Pikmin onto a single character really eases the burden of exploration. And while I do agree that Ochi can render some encounters harmless thanks to his charge, stun, and damage, I do think he's an overall positive addition to the game. His ability to dig and transport treasures, while also giving you the ability to swap to him, does help alleviate some of those micromanaging issues I was talking about, at least in the larger world areas. I didn't feel like that came into play too much in the tunnels. All in all, Pikmin 4 is a wonderful game. It's accessible to all while still providing a challenge to those that really want it. You just have to go looking for it. For a final rating, I would give the presentation a 4.5 out of 5, the gameplay a 4 out of 5, the story a 2.5 out of 5, for an overall rating of a 4 out of 5. And for value, I would say get it. It is worth it at full price. Very happy with my purchase. But what do you think? Does this game ruin the franchise for some reason, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you with the next video.